Is anyone out there? So are folks out there? Hello? Hello? I can't hear anyone. So if you're there, can you use the chat feature and tell me you're there? Hello, is anyone there? I'm kind of hoping that people can hear me, and maybe I'm just not getting feedback. Oh, there we go. All right, so I think I can see that Bob's here. Elaine, Barbara. I look very serious. Yeah. It's funny, you can see me. I can't see me. And I can't hear anybody. But I think as long as you can send me messages, then this can still work. Let me try a couple more things. Okay. I'm going to go ahead. If you guys can, in that chat window, just give me let's go through the presentation, and then please do ask questions as we go. Is the volume okay? Hmm. All right, so you should be able to see the presentation now. I am definitely flying blind here. Don't even know if you can still see me. And I'm not getting any updates to the questions. But I hear an email coming in. I'll check that really quickly. All right, Elaine sent me an update. Courtney is trying to get on the call. I'm going to resend her this. There we go. You should, Jesse, have a microphone built in, but I haven't been able to hear anybody. Looks like my voice is coming through though. And I've gotten comments from most of you. Colin is having trouble. He's having to get around his school district email, so he's trying to sign in through Gmail now. And Courtney is just getting the link. Has anyone in the group used Google Hangout before? I'm obviously going to have to spend some time figuring it all out. And I know at least Elaine will get some practice with the FTC teams this weekend. So I don't know if you guys have the same screen as me, but I have these icons in the left-hand side of the screen, and there's a Q&A, but there's also a dark blue box up at the top that's a chat box. And I'm hoping that opens up a more continuous stream of chat instead of the singular questions and answers. I'm kind of flipping back between the two now, but all the comments I see so far are in the Q&A. And maybe that's what we'll just have to go with. And Bob can't figure out the microphone. There is there should be a settings bar if you scroll over to the left-hand side of your screen. Down at the bottom, there's a control room. And at least for me, when I click on that, that's where I have control of my microphone. But it's true, and I'm used to GoToMeeting and those. I can see all the other participants. And right now, I can't see any of you except in the Q&A section. But Bob and Elaine say the volume is good, and maybe there's just a delay in when your comments are coming through, and there have been a ton of just go. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna get started with this little presentation. This is gonna come in bits and pieces for Elaine and Barbara, who have run tournaments before. A lot of this is gonna be repeat, and so you can kind of tune out when you need to. I'm hoping that you can give input on the things that you learned a lot from last year. It's too bad that we don't have everybody able to chime in on the mic, but please do chime in on chat. You know, you guys have, in some ways, more experience in being just a tournament director, since I've sort of been doing this from the partner standpoint. This manual is definitely your Bible when you're going forward and planning a tournament. This is created by First Headquarters in New Hampshire, and the idea is that we should have a consistent product, consistent tournaments all around the world. Every single person who runs a tournament is intended to use this manual. And we'll make some small adjustments for Alaska, but it should be incredibly similar. Colin, I'm just seeing that it's restricting video. I turned off my video so that I would just have the presentation up there. So let me know. Hopefully you're, boy, this is definitely going to take some practice, but hopefully this is going to work. All right, so as we go through this, there are some things that we're going to have to do some follow-up trainings on. The main one is VIMS, the Volunteer Information Management System, and then the Volunteer Management System. So when we get to that, if you can find somebody to be your VIMS person, I think that's really helpful. But if not, we'll do a training on that later on. As we're going through here, we will talk really quickly about these roles. Again, we want to stay consistent, and that is why the manual is used throughout the world. The tournament director is the individual responsible for the tournament. That is you, wonderful, wonderful group of volunteers. Thank you. And ultimately, we are trusting you to say, I'm not there. Dave Patterson does a lot, but he's not there. So you guys are taking on this event, and you can make it your own and use this as guidelines and make sure that you're sticking with the standards that are set. And this manual is intended for you and your tournament committee. Shouldn't be just handed out to kids, but you know, it's not. Certainly share it with other key volunteers so that they know what you know in setting up the tournament. All right. Oh, I like this last one. Tournament director should remember that you are responsible to the region's first LEGO League partner. The manual does not supersede that responsibility. Make arrangements according to your partner's policies and procedures. Hopefully, we are not a region that does a lot of top-down mandates. So if there's anything that you have questions about or anything where you're reading something and getting a mixed message from me, just ask me. We can bring it up with the group. And the main goal of every decision that we make and any decision we make that is different than what you read in the manual, it's because it's going to work better for our region and be better for our kids. And so if it might be that I just didn't read something right, and we can change it and make it consistent if you bring it up with me. So again, just open communication, and we'll have some great tournaments around the state. So all of this you can read on your own, and it makes sense. It's important as you plan to remember where we're all coming from, that you are now representatives of FIRST, for inspiration and recognition of science and technology. You want to remember that mission, that we're inspiring young kids to really get excited about science and technology. And that should be the goal of your tournaments. It's not necessarily to teach them specific things about waste management. It's not to teach them specific things about engineering, but it is to inspire them. So you want kids leaving feeling great about what they've done and great about what they're going to do next, really inspired to go off and do more. We want to make sure that everybody involved in the tournaments is aware of the whole first family of programs. We have 4 levels, and the idea is to engage kids young and keep them engaged throughout their school career, and then as adult volunteers also. We're lucky in Alaska in that all 4 of our programs are all coordinated by the Juneau Economic Development Council, and so there's a natural connection between the 4. But a lot of the coaches are siloed, and there's a lot of FLL kids and coaches that don't know that there's a high school program in FTC, or even FTC students that don't know that there's a FIRST robotics team that's open to them and available in the state. So if you aren't aware of the 4 programs, you can look them up on these websites. Again, you can call me and we can just have a conversation about it. Lego Group, great partner. We can skim through this. Core values, I will pause for a second because they get even more important the higher up you get. You're going to be responsible for a lot of people, and you're going to be the person that a lot of the bad news comes to at the end of the day. So remembering that you're a role model for those first Lego League core values, and that you're working as a team. You have me as the partner. You've got Dave as a volunteer at a lot of the events. You have all of your event volunteers. That's your team. You're going to struggle with them at different points, but you want to be a gracious professional and remember that the goal is to provide a great, inspiring event for kids. And again, you are modeling all of this. So when you do get the bad feedback, when you get an angry parent, when you get a coach who drives you absolutely crazy, come back to this and make sure that you're treating them in a way that goes back to that original goal of, is your interaction with them going to be gracious and help to inspire all the kids at that event? So the tournaments, we want to have fun. We want to make sure there's music and lots of really cool core value stuff going on, and that we're honoring all the hard work that kids did. That's why we work really hard to set up the events, because everything that we're doing is modeling what we want to see in the kids also. We want to make it fun, respect their work, be fair. So it is really important that our judges and refs are trained and that they're honest with what the kids are achieving and not, because they notice when you're not being fair. But you also do want to minimize grief and disappointment. So there's some level of flexibility, the benefit of the doubt that referees and the judges have, where you're not playing gotcha with the kids. You're not trying to catch them doing something wrong. You're trying to really reward the things that they're doing right. But you do remember that it is a competition, and remember that there's kids that are going to go home with trophies and there's kids that won't, and that's fine. And it's you'll get a lot of questions and comments about it, and coaches that want everybody to leave with a trophy, which at some of our smaller tournaments they do. But just remind them that it is still a competition and that they are invited to come back next year and compete for those trophies again. Okay, moving on. Your tournaments are, your biggest job as tournament director is pulling in a really good team. Again, Elaine and Barbara, if you can throw up some comments and just back me up on that. The biggest thing is having a good group of people there to help you. I am still trying to see, nothing is coming up in my chat window, just in the Q&A. So hopefully you can all see each other's questions. Feels so strange to be talking and not have anything else there, but I'm going to keep going. Your tournament committee is going to be comprised of these main roles. You're organizing, but you definitely don't want to take on all of the work. 2 key volunteers that you want to recruit tomorrow, if you can, are your head referee and your judge advisor. We've got a great head referee for the state, Bruce Sexauer. He was the coach of the electronically overdressed senioritas. He is not coaching this year and instead has offered to be the head referee. He's in Anchorage. He's going to try to make all of the Anchorage events. He's even willing to try to come out to some of the other ones, but he will communicate with and train whoever are the referees in the other regions and at the other tournaments. Same thing, our judge advisor this year should be, I haven't gotten a confirmation from him yet, but Mike Fenster, who did it last year, and he is available to any judge that needs input, advice. He's really good at answering questions. He's been involved with FIRST since it first came to Alaska, so he gets core values, he gets the progression of programs. Get him in touch with your judges. These two volunteers need to commit early, and they can help you recruit their teams. Referee for a 20-team tournament, you're going to want 4 referees if you can find them. So get your head referee to pull in 3 or 4 of their friends. They're going to work better together. They're going to find times to train outside of the tournament, and they're just going to have a better time on the day. Same thing, your judge. See if they can be the one that you delegate and just say, you're going to need a team of 6 to 12 judges. We'll go through those numbers later. Please go out and find them. And you can give them the judge advisor manual that gives them some ideas on where to find those volunteers. Volunteer coordinator has become more and more important as the years have gone on. We have this crazy online, all of our volunteers are background checked. Every single adult that puts on a volunteer shirt at any of our tournaments should have a background check. And the idea there is that they are given some authority just by wearing that shirt. We're expecting kids to trust them. And if that's true, then we need to do our due diligence and make sure that there's someone the kids should feel safe with. Your volunteer coordinator can handle the backside of that, following up with people, getting them through the system. If they get stuck for some reason, going in and finding out why. So that's another good person. I know there are some tournament directors that will take this on in addition to their role as tournament director. If you want to do that, more power to you, but it is a fair amount of extra work. These things are all things that need to be done. And again, we're going to see how some people can double up on things. Teams coordinator, somebody who's going to be a really good job for whoever your pit manager is going to be, communicating with those teams. You want to make sure they know where to be, when to be, anything special, parking, any information that you want to get out just to your teams at your tournament. You want somebody who's going to be able to talk to them about that, help them with their TIMs, getting all of their consent forms and that stuff in. A technical advisor. It's so much more fun when you can have a camera pointing down at the field and get that robot action displayed up on a screen. Find somebody now who's going to set that up, who has the equipment. I will answer that question in a second, Jesse. So a technical advisor, they can set up the scoring software that FIRST provides. They're just really, really handy. They can handle the PA system. And then materials coordinator, you are going to have totes of stuff. So again, if you can have somebody who's in charge of that load out, load in and load out, make sure things are in the right bin, maybe keep track of copies, that kind of thing, it can be really helpful. Facilities coordinator is going to be your contact at the site. Food coordinator, another one I say get early. Just find that one person who is going to get food, show up with it on the day, feed your volunteers. If you're going to feed the kids at your tournament, they're going to feed the kids, and you don't have to think about it. My food coordinator is generally my favorite person at the tournament. And then a production manager. So somebody's going to handle the opening and closing ceremonies. If you're lucky enough to have Dave, just let Dave do it because he's going to do it anyway. If you don't have Dave, find that person, a radio DJ, somebody that does theater or something to kind of help plan out the overall picture of your event. These 3, fundraising manager, will talk about what you're going to need funding for, and hopefully that's very limited for all of you. If you want to do more at your event, then you're going to need that person. A media coordinator, again, it's what you want to do with your event. So most of our qualifiers are really small, but local press is so great for the kids. There's nothing like waking up and seeing your picture on the front page of the paper. So Jesse, I saw a question. What about high school students volunteering at the tournament? Do they have a background check? They're technically, and Elaine, I know that your daughter ran into this. I believe they have to be 16 or older. And I need to double check on what the rules are with background check or not. I know that anybody 18 or older has to have a background check. I know that the high school students are supposed to be registered in BIMS. I will also say that for your local event in Ketchikan, if you get a list of high school students that are going to show up and volunteer, put their names down and have them come in and work with them. I am not going to ding anybody's event for pulling in high school students that don't go through that process and get their background checks. And that's on tape too, so you can get me for that in the end. There's just a few more diagrams here that show how all the work can be done. These are things that you really can't do without. This breaks it down into all the other roles. This really does stand true. You need to have at least 4 people. You want to have yourself as a director, a separate judge advisor, a separate head referee. A separate volunteer coordinator is really, really handy. That way on the day of the event, if you're out there talking to teams and putting out small fires as they go, your volunteer coordinator can really focus on just your volunteers. If I'm going to pick one other thing to make essential, get a food coordinator. Get one person who's going to be in charge of that. Okay. Biggest challenges here, finding a head referee and a judge advisor. I am hoping that we're pretty set for this. The 2 areas that I'm most concerned about are Ketchikan and Homer, since you're having official events for the first time. So Bob and Jesse, I don't know, Jesse, who you had do it last year. I'm betting that you guys are set. You've got a really enthusiastic community down there. Bob, I'm hoping the same thing is true in Homer, and I'm betting that you could get some volunteers even to drive out from Kenai. But just let me know if you're having trouble finding these key people, and I can do some outreach through our networks too to try to find somebody. If you know that you already have them, you can even buzz that into the questions, and then I'll feel great about where we are going forward. Courtney, you're all set for Juneau, and Elaine and Barbara, you should have your head ref and judge advisor, the same as for the state. Thanks, Bob. That doesn't make me feel better, but I'll remember to call you soon. So again, it's just going to run through different examples of how you can structure your volunteers, and it's how you're going to figure it out. These role descriptions, it's a lot of information to say your tournament director is in charge. Making sure things run on schedule is really important. And you're the one who's gonna, again, it doesn't say it in here, but kind of take the good and the bad and communicate back to me. The head referee, they're in charge of referees. It's really easy. The judge advisor, they're in charge of judging. An important thing to remember with these roles, in here, it says nothing about you as tournament director having anything to do with reffing or having anything to do with judging. It's one of the harder things about being a tournament director is kind of stepping back and letting other people take on those roles. Coaches are going to come to you with questions about what the head ref did or didn't do. They're going to come to you with questions about why judging was this way or that. And part of your job is to stand behind those volunteers that have put a lot of time into learning the rules and understanding the judging process and all the different deliberation process and rubrics. So make sure that you don't step on their toes when they're doing their jobs. You let them be the experts in their area. And again, you're just that general oversight to make sure that things are going according to plan and meeting the standards that FIRST sets. Goes in, walks through all of these roles. You guys can go back through and read these slowly, carefully, and sit through them. Gives you some ideas of where to recruit. We're all in pretty small communities. Even Anchorage is actually a pretty small community. Teachers are a great place to reach out and find volunteers. Parents, for all of the little roles that you need, they're really helpful, and they're going to be at the event anyway. And then FLL graduates are really great. So those are 3 places that I highly recommend looking. All of our towns are small enough too that we can reach out to waste management for project judges. Go find the people that are working at the dump, find the people that are your city regulators and making the decision for the city, and bring them in as judges to hear the kids' ideas. Use the fact that we can network really easily with people in relevant positions and have them get involved with the tournaments each year. Okay, that's a quick run through on volunteer roles. Filling your volunteer positions and your tournament committee is, again, the most important thing that you're going to do in the next month. So if you pop them into the Q&A thing here, and I will try to answer them. I still can't tell what the lag is on when you're typing in questions and when I'm getting to see them. I think there's a bit of a lag, so I'm trying to give time. But we're going to keep going because it's already 6:30 and we've got a lot to breeze through. And like I said, and I'll say over and over again, we're going to go back, and every one of you is free to email and call me with individual questions as they come up, because it's a lot to take in and a lot to get done by our events in December. So next thing is picking out your venue. In Anchorage, we have Central Middle School again. In Juneau, we're going to be at Centennial Hall. Ketchikan, I'm assuming you guys are at Fawn Mountain. And Bob, I think you guys are going to be in West Homer Elementary. So the venues are pretty easy to set up. We know them. You don't have to go find a place, which is great. When you think about organization, start early in thinking in color coding, thinking about the separate areas, whatever rooms they're going to be in, the supplies and the people that go with each color and go with each area. Opening and closing ceremonies should have their own space. It can be done in the competition area. So these two in blue, the cafeterias are a great place for this. If you do have a gym that has an overhead track, that's a really great place to have the competition because people can stand up top and look down. But I think everybody here has been to enough that they have a good idea of where to go. Oh, and Jesse, I've never been in Schoenbar, so I'd be curious about that one. For team judging and judges deliberation room, for judging, it's best if you can have separate rooms for each one of the judging events. So if you're going to have a 20-team tournament, you want to have 6 classrooms for judging and an extra room for judges deliberation so that your judge advisor can have a home base throughout the day. Team pits need to be big enough that you can have one table. We like to do a 6x3 table for each team and a couple practice tables out. You want to have a volunteer room and make sure that that room is approved to have food and drinks in it all day. And then you want to just have a welcome area to have teams and volunteers check in. And usually that's just right the front door of the school. Pretty easy to come up with. For the opening and closing ceremonies, team and spectator seating is something that we often don't have. We're in gyms where we just crowd people in and they stand around, and that is fine. We want to keep these events affordable and easy to set up. So if you can't get in a gym and you don't have bleachers, don't worry about it, but do think about your sound system. If you're going to have people standing around, make sure that your MC is mic'd well enough for everybody around to hear, and that they're aware that they should be turning around and engaging a whole audience. You want to think about the high five line and how you're going to have traffic flow coming through, where your queuing lines are going to be for your competition tables, and then what you're going to have to move at the end to have the big high five line. So just lay out that space. We have great maps for Central because we've been doing the event there for a while for our championship in South Anchorage. I'm happy to send you those and how we lay it out. Same thing for what we do here in Juneau, but we're lucky enough in Juneau to have a huge space, so it doesn't fit that well with what other people need. There's pictures of different ways to set it up that'll give you a good idea of how to do staging. Again, every single one of you has been to enough of these events that you should have a decent idea of how to set things up. We do this year have kind of left over from our FTC tournaments some screens and laptops that can be used for scoring. So if you don't have that available in your school, it's easiest if it's just available and you have it on your own. But if you don't, we do have some supplies in Pelican cases that we can ship out to Bethel or Homer or Ketchikan, wherever they need to go. So again, that's just one by one. Let me know what you need if you need support in pulling together AV supplies. Oh, yeah, Courtney, I will. It was attached to the email I just forwarded you. So for team judging areas, again, this shows the way they do it at World Festival, where teams go into one room, immediately into the next room, immediately into the next room. Elaine, you're the only one who has been through an event and done things that way. So again, feel free to chime in on the chat. But I find that that's a lot for kids to go from one to the next to the next. It's really nice for a coach and a team to have a little regrouping time before they have to go into their next judging session. So I don't set them up in a line, and I don't schedule quite like that. But you do want to make sure that you have a separate room, and if you can have it, access to PowerPoint projector, whatever you do have available for teams, just make sure that you tell the teams what's going to be there. I sort of, as a rule, and you guys have been to the championship, say we're not going to have anything, and that way we don't risk having it not work for the kids. I think that's my recommendation to you. But if you're in a school and you have those things available and you want to make it available to teams, that's great. It's really nice. Just let them know ahead of time, but do let them know when they come to Anchorage in January, we won't have any of that for them. And here's pictures of how things are set up. Judges' deliberation room is incredibly straightforward. You just want tables for the judges to sit around. It's nice if you do have 2 rooms. So if you're at a tournament with more than 12 teams, have separate tables so your robot design judges can sit together, core values and project. You want to have a whiteboard or chart paper set up for them to write on. Lots of fun pictures of our judges deliberating. Team pits. The big thing to watch out for in the team pit area is power. Some schools are set up really easily where you're not going to hit a breaker if you get a whole string of people plugging in and charging up laptops in the same area. Some you are, but just make sure that you talk to somebody at the school who's going to have an idea. Then the other thing to think about is how you're going to run power so that kids aren't tripping on cords. I like to tape down one extension cord that runs through the middle of pit tables like this. In South, just the way it's set up, we've just got the tables pushed up against the wall, and we ask teams to bring their own extension cords. Again, I recommend you asking teams to bring their own extension cords. It keeps your supplies down, and it's a pretty easy thing for a team to throw in their tote. If you do that, throw in a couple extra, because you will have a team that forgets to bring their extension cord or their power strip. And then practice tables. I'd like to have at least 1 per 5 teams, and it's what you can come up with. We don't provide the tournaments with extra tables, except Anchorage, you're lucky. So you have to have teams bring those in and volunteer to loan their set and all that good stuff. Big thing for the pits is to encourage teams to decorate, 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 celebrate. You know, if you can bring an extra paper, if you can bring in things for them to go around and share, it helps add to that community at the event. If you can do a team bingo, we've done, and I think some of the events did last year, where when teams come in, they get a sheet and they have to go around and find kids from other teams that have been to Europe. Or I think, Elaine, you did an updated one last year that was great. Maybe you can share that out when we open up the Google folder for everybody. Referee and event day volunteer room. Same thing, you want to make sure that there's food, make sure that there's lots and lots of water. big thing. Events forget to drink water throughout the day. And people can put their coats. If you can have a volunteer who's in there watching things all day long, that is the best. A lot of schools will get their junior ROTC programs. I forget, but the high school will have a ROTC something, like youth military. They're great security guards if you can pull them in and just rotate them through so that somebody's in there all day. We have had things stolen out of our volunteer rooms. They're kids, and sometimes kids have sticky fingers. The volunteer check-in area, that is where it's somewhere down farther, but have a table for teams, have a table for volunteers. When you've only got 12 teams, it's not that big a deal. Nice to have a big whiteboard so that you can put updates on if you need to. And this is a great place to have a lost and found box, and definitely have somebody with a radio to ask you questions as people come in and have questions. We're hoping this year there's going to be very little collecting of forms. There's the option for teams to do all of that consent form stuff online and have it in their team information management system before they come to the event. So hopefully there won't be a lot of paper. It fits with the trash truck theme. Team and spectator lunch area. Again, we are renting or borrowing space in all of our venues. So please, let's try to keep it clean. Make sure that people know what's allowed and what's not allowed for food, and make sure that you have some extra trash bags and stuff on order. One thing that we've done in Juneau, and I know they've done on and off in Anchorage, is to set up pizza orders for kids. So we get a discount and have everybody put their pizza order in the day before, and then our pizza company just comes and brings a ton of pizzas right 10 minutes before we break for lunch. Volunteers organize them by team, makes life easy for the coaches, and it's just a nice extra for tournaments. We do end up with a lot of pizza boxes that somebody has to take to recycling every year. So set that up ahead of time and just make sure that you're coordinating with whoever is there, that you can have food in different areas and that you're not going to get in trouble afterwards and risk that venue for the following year. Traffic flow, if you don't have your venue set up already, you want to think about this too. How long is it going to take for people to get from one area to the other? Are there stairs? If there are, is the elevator easily accessible if you have somebody who needs it? If teams have a judging session and then run over for a practice match and then have to run back to the judging, how long is that going to take them? And is your schedule padded enough to make up for that? Just think about how they're going to move through the different events. More things to think about. Parking, do you need signage for parking is a big one that I always forget about. So if you need them in a certain spot, make sure that that's clear to them when they're coming in. School districts, sometimes it can be really hard to get into the building early. So just know when you're going to be allowed to be in and when you need to be out by. Same thing with extra custodial. Emergency procedures. We are committed to having a nurse practitioner or an EMT on site at all the events. I have never had an event where there wasn't a parent who was one of those things. But it's a good thing to just check on, make sure that if there's an emergency, you know who the right person to contact is going to be. And then make sure everybody knows what the deal is. Coaches are always, in emergency situations, responsible for finding and communicating with their teams, and then they are going to be your point of contact to reach out to their teams. There's a risk in there that we're going to lose contact with the coach, but it's the best sort of communication tree that we have. And then AV support, again, talk to the school. If you're using a gym, they'll usually have a mic set up, but it usually costs more to rent, and you need somebody to unlock it the day of the event. So make sure you know what is going on with AV, and then what exactly is in your contract for the rental. I have signed a lot of those, and I'm happy to do that again, but make sure, hound me to send it on to you so that it's in your hands when you're actually there at the event. All right. So There's some numbers for you, but it's all pretty straightforward. And we're still waiting on final amounts of teams, but right now we're at 180 for the state. So we're going to have some pretty full tournaments this year, which is really exciting. All right, moving on, not getting a lot of questions. I hope this format is killing me, that I can't talk to you guys. But I'm gonna hope that I get emails and phone calls with lots of questions next week. Supplies and equipment. Oh, here we go. Insurance. So I can provide you with insurance, and most of the schools require that. It's an extra $100, but I have it in my budget to cover it for the events. So just let me know if it's not covered under the school. It's different for different sites. So Bob, if you can talk to the school and find out if they need separate insurance, if it's not going to be a school sponsored event, and then I can go in and I can get that for you. All right, supplies and equipment, signage. If you don't have money to get nice printed signs, I know Barbara and Elaine, I assume you guys will talk. Elaine has some great stuff, and Dave has a stock of stuff in Anchorage. Courtney, we have signage printed. But it's a good thing for high school volunteers too, to just get some paint and do the big banners on chart paper like they do for all the other activities at the school. Referee shirts we will send to you. Same goes for judge polos and volunteer shirts. I see things moving on the right there. But these lists are really great. And again, it's going to be slightly different at each event, what exactly you want to have. So use this as your guide. All these organization tips of having color-coded boxes, they're things that if you start now, your life will be a lot easier for load in and load out. And then when everybody comes back to run events again next year, it'll be really easy because you've got your boxes set and ready to go. So in the welcome area, here's what you're going to need. Any station where you've got volunteers sitting for the whole day, make sure they've got some water, some snacks. I like to throw in, just a side note, some breath mints or some gum, because they also have to be talking to people all day, and we're pumping them full of coffee, so we should pump them full of Altoids or something nice too. These have really great supply lists. Notice though that it's for a 12-team tournament, so you want to think through where these numbers are going to be if you're at a larger event, if you need more or less, and if you have questions about it, if a number seems off, just let me know. We are encouraging people in general this year to make fewer copies. There's a lot that we can do to share things like schedules and programs online, and I would love to see more of that this year. It'll save us money on printing, and it again fits with the theme of just creating less waste at all of our events. But more information here. A core values input form is something that we can talk about. If you are going to take that on, you want to make sure that you communicate well with your judge advisor. If you're collecting input during the event, you want to make sure that that input makes it into the judges, and that all teams are aware that it's an option to get that information, all teams and all volunteers. If it's not well communicated to teams, then it's not a fair way of collecting information, and you're kind of getting some biased things in. So it is really nice that we could do it. Another bonus that we're going to have this year is some core values pins and stickers that your volunteers can have, so that when they see an example of really great core values in the pits, in the competition area, wherever, they can take a sticker and give it to a kid and say, "Thank you for your gracious professionalism," right there on the spot. And it's immediate feedback that they're doing a good job, and it's not something that then maybe they will, maybe they won't get a trophy or a shout out from the judges, but that individual knows that they did the right thing at that moment. So I'm happy that we're going to have those this year, and that'll come with the supplies, general supplies for your events. Supply boxes, again, I'll let you weed through this slowly. I wish that we could be getting questions about this as we go, but just use this as a checklist. Go through and make sure that you have all these things ready to go. Earlier is better. We'll get to this when we get to the competition area. Some of these things like gaffer's tape can be kind of expensive, and that's where you're going to want to look at your own budget and think about what you can borrow. If you've got some AV folks, you got good connections and you can get those things donated, that's awesome. If you end up in a position where you just don't have the resources to do it, you can contact me and we can see what we can do to help get you some of our supplies from my office. Judging rooms. Again, refreshments in this area for volunteers. Your judges are there for an entire morning. I put a bunch of water in each one of the judging rooms and usually a little bowl with trail mix or something that they can eat. Some chocolate. Everybody loves chocolate. This lines it out really nicely for you. You just have a checklist to make sure that you have rubrics printed out, that you have all the resources that those judges are going to need to go through. Every judge seems to want something a little bit different. I like to put my judge advisor in charge of pulling together these supplies. But just make sure you have a lot of different stuff, because they'll all take notes in a slightly different way. They'll all want to, some want to carry their stuff in a clipboard, some want a manila folder to hold their rubrics in. So I just have a bunch on hand ready to go for whoever, make everyone happy. More things for all of these individual copies, like on here where it says award nomination and ranking sheet, there's a page at the end of this that tallies up all of the paper copies that you need to make. So don't worry about pulling each individual one out here. This shows you what box they need to go in, but the copying numbers are at the end. All right, competition area. Again, you can see some setups here. It's great if you can have an AV setup so that everybody can see the scores really well. It's even better if you can have that field projected onto so that people sitting up here can see the robots in action down on the field. I'm going to go through here. One thing, when you are getting your competition tables ready, it's a little different than working with your individual teams in that those two competition tables need to be screwed together. So make sure you've got a drill and some wood screws. That's something that is very easy to find in the, I would bet that every one of you has a drill and some good wood screws at home. Just make sure you know what your table setup's going to be. And for the field setup kits, this is something that I do delegate to you. You'll each be getting enough field setup kits for your tournaments. Barbara Elaine has offered to build the Anchorage, or to organize a building session for the Anchorage kit. So I'm going to send the ones that would go to you to her. For the other events, you're just going to get the number of field setup kits that you need for your competition area. You are going to have to borrow the ones for judging and practice. If for some reason you have a budget to pay for more fields, I'm happy to order them for you. You just have to let me know. But I'll send you the number of how many kits you're getting, and they should be there in about 2 weeks. Another thing to think about in the competition area is how you're going to keep the public away from the fields and the refs. It is amazing, but tape on the floor is like a magic barrier for people. So if you don't have access to stanchions or something, some physical barrier that's going to come up in front of them, just take some of that gaffer's tape, put it on the floor in a box around your field and how far back you want them to be, and then just make it clear that Everybody has to stand behind the line, and they will. Tape is magical. All right. This is all stuff, again, that I'm going to let you guys read through and check off as you go. And please, oh, Jesse, I hope, can everybody else still hear me? Again, you don't need me to read this whole thing to you, so I'm gonna scroll down and let you guys come back to reading what's gonna go in those boxes. So I'm going slowly to try and see if anybody has questions. But it doesn't look like I have any questions, so I'm gonna keep going. Pre-event logistics. So this is where, again, first thing you want to do is find those key volunteers and get your tournament committee together. 4 to 6 months out, this should all be done. But if you're not done with it, don't worry. Confirm your venue. And I can talk through the original ones, but Courtney, the Juneau venue is set, and we have a contract. Elaine and Barbara, Anchorage, we're going through Catherine Kurtz again, and I believe that everything is set, although I don't have a contract yet, so I don't want to promise. But for Bob and Jesse, you want to get your venue set as soon as you can. And if, again, you need us to be the renter and sign a contract, I can do that. Just let me know who you need me to be in touch with. So develop site plans and a site layout map and review it with your tournament committee. I also recommend, just if you want to, run it by me and we can look at traffic flow and make sure that it's something that we think is going to work. Developing those maps now is great because then they're done when you're developing your team packet to go out to coaches where they need to go. Recruit additional tournament committee members. Just find people that are interested. The more hands on deck, as long as they're helpful hands, you're going to be happy. Identify the source of your field setup kits. So your competition kits, again, will come from me and you will have to build them. It's great. I like to have, with my adult friends, a pizza and beer party, and we build together. I've had teams build them in the past, and I've had high school teams build them in the past. And Elaine, I feel like you've got you're a good disciplinarian, so I feel like you'll make sure that those kits are built right. But it takes some oversight. I always have to go back and fix a lot of what's built at our bigger field setup kit build events. So just keep a good eye on them and have somebody, if you can, your head ref is a really good person to do it, go through and make sure that all those fields are built right a little bit ahead of your events. The sooner you build the fields, which I know depends on when I get them to you, that, again, happier you're going to be. The head referee should build one field if possible. I'm sending a separate field to Bruce and Courtney. Travis in Juneau will be our field guru, and he's going to get his own kit too. So in at least those two areas, this is set. The big thing, either game tables is something for Homer and Ketchikan. You need to look into borrowing also, or building. The supplies aren't that bad, but you want to make sure that you have enough tables and people that can get them in and out of the building for the competition. And insurance, again, Bob's the one who asked about it, but anybody else who's going to need additional insurance for their event, just contact me and we can purchase insurance through first. And then training requirements for judges, referees, and volunteers is going to be slightly mixed, but we will have Bruce do an online training for all of our reps, and we'll have Mike, hopefully, do an online training for all of our judges. So stand by on dates for those things, but we'll make sure that it's before December 5th, which is our first event. And we'll try to get everybody in on that same one training, again, for consistency's sake, to make sure everybody's doing the same thing around the state. I know for my events, I like to do an additional training on site so that my Juneau refs are getting trained together, usually do it the night before the event, that they come to the venue, they learn their way around, just gets them calmer the day of the event, and I get fewer questions. Same thing for judges, and as much as possible, the event day volunteers, I like to have them there the night before just to do a walkthrough. It also helps guarantee that they're going to show up the day of the event, because it's always painful when you get there on Saturday morning and they're not there. If you know all your volunteers, they're seasoned, and you know they're going to show up, it's probably not as necessary. No, I'll just share that my husband just got home and is shouting downstairs. He'll hopefully find me eventually. All right. Review with me your requirements for the Youth Protection Program. This again is that VIM setup. Every adult who's at the event needs to have a background check, is in an official capacity, who's wearing a volunteer shirt. So we'll do a VIMS training. If you can, find a volunteer coordinator who's going to do all of that back-end stuff for you. We'll have at least one more tournament director call, but then after that, it's going to be a lot of one-on-one conversations. We're small enough that we don't need to do a lot of these coordinated calls. Most of your questions later on are going to be site specific, but we'll do at least one more just to share best practices, and then we'll do one wrap-up call after all the tournaments are over to again go through what went well, what didn't, and what can we learn from other sites. New this year, the judge advisor is required to pass certification. That's all handled in that online volunteer management system, but make sure that they do that. And these are more things. Schedule regular meetings with your tournament committee. They don't need to be get everybody together in a room. They can be just an email chain and maybe a phone call once a month. Smaller events you can manage without making them that big of a deal, but get people engaged and make sure that they're doing things throughout the timeline to prep. 2 to 3 months out, here's your list. So this is kind of the next thing that you're going to go on. We'll check in again in a month and a half from now, and we'll go through these a little bit more carefully. The good news for you guys is trophies are off your plate. I'll order and pay for the trophies. And just so you know, that's what comes out of the tournament fees that we collect. They won't come back to you as event director. So any extras that you're throwing into your event, you do need to fundraise for. We still charge teams $50 per event to cover the cost of the trophies and medals, the volunteer shirts, and the field setup kits that go for the competition area. Some of that will go towards venue rentals and other things too. The fees that we collect don't cover the cost of the events. So we're not stealing money from your events, and I apologize that we don't have more to give back to support you. This is the first year where we are not going to be able to provide separate funds for food at events. We do have pre-made sponsorship forms for each one of those qualifier events where somebody can come in as a lead sponsor, a gold sponsor, all those other levels. If you get somebody to come in with that, then that money will go into your event budget and help support those other things that you might need. So let me know if you want to go out and find an event sponsor to help you cover additional costs for your event. And I can give you that form and help with some of that outreach too. I know Elaine has a great sponsor for her event with Alaska Communications, and I hope that more single event sponsors like that come on. All right. This is a cool year for this one. Arranging, if applicable, any speakers and VIPs. If you do have an event sponsor, it's really great if you can get people from that sponsor. You know, Alaska Communications provided a lot of volunteers for Elaine's event last year. We have Imagination Station, it's a toy store in Juneau. They come in and set up a like PlayStation at the Juneau event, which is great advertising for them, and it keeps the younger siblings of the kids that come into our event a little bit more entertained. So think about fun ways that you can engage people. If you can get somebody to come in and talk for 5 minutes in your opening ceremony about engineering or about waste management, that's great. If you can have the superintendent or the principal of your school come and say something during the awards that's inspiring, really great. If you can have an alumni say just a couple words about how great the program has been for them. Those are the things that you can have fun with as an event director, and see how you can just make your event really special, make it your own, and do something that you think is going to go that extra level to inspire kids that are there. And develop media plan to get the word out and a media packet. Again, small local events. You don't need to do too much, but whatever you do want to do, just adds to it. If you can get a kid who's there on the news that night, have a camera crew come out. We do a really big push in Anchorage for our championship, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't reach out to them for the qualifiers. And then, do you need to start emailing your teams? It's never too early to start communicating with your teams. We're going to have registration open this year on October 1st. It is the first year that we're going to be allowing teams to register through the Team Information Management System, so TIMS, where you go in to register your team. You're going to be able to apply for an event through that system. And we're going to have a separate payment system set up. Each one of you has been invited to be an event director. It should give you access to the back end of that. It's called the partner portal, where you can go in and see which teams have applied for your event. There won't be any teams there yet because registration's not open, but after October 1st, we'll do another check-in webinar to make sure that everybody knows how that system's working. Hopefully by then, I'll figure out how this Google Hangout thing works too, and I'll be able to get more questions and hear what you guys are thinking and saying. So these final bits of the timeline, I recommend you read them closely now and then revisit them in a month and 2 months from now when they're a little bit more relevant. But really, right now you're getting your events together, your volunteers together, and you are making sure that you have how your venue is going to be set up in mind, and that you know where you're going to get all the supplies that you need to get. This tournament manual has really nice lists for all of your setup, which will be really helpful when you're actually getting ready and you're a little bit closer to the event. All right, 7:06. And I want to do a little straw poll if you can. If somebody could ask the question of, do you have enough information to kind of get going, to take this guide, read through it more carefully, recruit your committees, and then we'll check in again in a month? Or do you want to continue going through the manual tonight? I feel like it's a lot of information and you've gotten that overview and the first steps that you need to get done. So my thought is that it's a good time to cut things off, and I can stay online and answer questions as you have them. But just please do take this manual, read through it really carefully. We're all on that same email group now. So if you have a question, do a reply all, send it to everybody who's organizing a tournament, and that way we can have a conversation and share what we're doing. You know, there's things that Jesse may have done in CatchCan that are way better than anything that I've come up with. Elaine had some great things set up last year and pulled together some resources that would be good to share with other tournaments. Barbara's been doing this for 3 years. So again, she should have some insight that could be really helpful for others. So send questions to Reply All to all of our tournament directors, and just, spend an hour or two a week when we're at the point we are now, a couple of months out, starting to pull together your resources and packets and bins and all that stuff. And life will be a lot easier when we get to Thanksgiving and it's kind of crunch time. Okay, I am staring at the questions, but that's all that I'm going to go through tonight. I'm going to let you peruse these materials on your own. So you can sign out or throw out more questions, and I will answer them tonight. And if you are signing out, I don't see how to know whether or not you're signing out. So write a question in that says that you're good to go. And I will, again, I'll talk to you. I'll send an email out next week, and then we'll follow up with a call in a month or so. Huh. I don't see anything from anyone. It's making me... Oh, okay. Now I see some questions. Courtney, I will add you to the original email list so that when people reply all, you'll be on there. Jesse Embry from Catchcan, can you change your date to an earlier time? Yes, you definitely can. Do you want an earlier time or an earlier date? If you email me what you want it to be, we can totally adjust it, especially for you guys, since it'll be just Catchcan. And Bob, have fun. It's going to be a blast. Okay, I'm going to close the Hangout, and I will talk to folks soon.